Guys, running Jacaranda Hub has been humbling. It humbles you. And every year, we think you've gone through problems this year. Hey,
you have a new set and you're going to
I'm fixing these problems, and my new problems have gone to the gym. They're doing push-ups, waiting for me. And then I get into this new season. Oh, we won. Like, at least we got here, we got out, and they're like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Now that you've reached this level, guess what? Your problems went to private school. They're very fluent in problematic things. So for me, life is about convenience. So if I'm not comfortable with where I'm sitting, if I'm not comfortable with the environment I'm in, instead of complaining, I see opportunities to change that space. Disruption. So I'm a disruptor. I've been a disruptor from childhood. People talk about entrepreneurship and say it's lonely. Right. No. It's only lonely because you don't recognize the people in that space and you don't create the networks and the relationships that you need to nurture. I was entitled and I was asking for things that I felt I deserved. And then I was reminded and I was told, I'm not your father. I'm not your provider. Do not stress me. I have my own stresses. Find an answer. That was the best gift. I cried for 5 days, but after that, I was just like, whew, reality. The reality of that just shook me. And because of that, I don't feel entitled. I work for everything. I earn. When I say I deserve this, is because I worked my way. As an entrepreneur, if you're entitled, you're done. Yeah. How many times do you go and pitch to someone and you get a no? Yeah. Do you come back broken or do you come back with answers? Yeah. How many times do you get no even when you feel I did everything, like this was a perfect pitch? Yeah. I'll get this. I know this is coming to me, and they say no. Misalignment. You're not entitled to anything.
Welcome again to the 3 and Company. Today we have, we're quite at a very, very nice location. I think that Buff maybe will dive into where we are at in a space of Lusaka. I know it's like Bus Connect, but as you can see, we're sipping on some wines. And Buff, what are you having?
Water.
Water.
That is water.
Interesting stuff.
This is water.
Cool.
It's water.
Yeah, but perfect location, and also ties into the guest that we have. I know that maybe she's also. There's a common word I learned last year about. It's called ambience. Just describing the place and the scenery, and yeah, so we have a special guest today who's fits perfectly with the ambience. So welcome, Mara, and this is the company that we have today. So welcome, Mara, to 3 and Company.
Thank you. I'm ready.
Yeah. So I think the background is that it was interesting how Mara reached out, or maybe we were just having a conversation around the podcast. I was like, you know what? I'm coming into Lusaka now and I need to be there. I was like, no, anything for you. That's pretty much the conversation today. And I think that we have Mara. Mara, I think on my end, she's a very, very special friend. No, not special in that way, but yeah, she's
it's okay. No one can pound you on the back.
No one thought that.
We've I think the way I would tie the story is really around the ecosystem. Right. And I think we've been friends from the ecosystem and trying to pursue this ecosystem thing. I think this is something we're going to dive into as well, get her perspective, but also on a friendly basis, just more like she's also been like one of those people that have been carried along the journey, as in to inspire me and to reach greater heights. So it's personal to me. I don't know about you, but yeah, it's personal to me. But I think to set off the tone, I think we can get into it. Yeah, cool. Okay, so one thing I was reading Mara's bio, hey, and it's quite hard to segment what she really is about. Right. Yeah, and I think the things that I found very interesting is that I think just reading about the bio is that multi-award winner. Tech Women of the Year. That's a Tech Trends Award. Congratulations on that. Yeah. 50 under 50 female trailblazer, Africa and Middle East. Yeah, that's Female Founder Initiative Award. Congratulations on that. I think there's another award they gave you.
So some of them are actually towards like the organization, Jacaranda
yeah,
Hub. So
yeah.
we've got best agribusiness incubator in
Nice.
Africa,
Congratulations,
and
yeah.
another one for Southern Africa.
Okay, yeah.
Then we got digital skills, digital literacy enabler by Zikta, which was a pretty big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so that one, and then we got best NGO
Okay,
in Southern Africa.
Congratulations. Eh?
So yeah,
Okay.
last year was raining. Raining includes.
Yeah, we're just getting into next year. I think we're in the second month right now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, cool. A lot of things to come. Yeah, but the thing that really caught me on your bio is my dream keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to start from there.
Yeah.
To change things a bit. I know
Yeah.
that he's got a question for you. That we'll talk about maybe dealings with the background. But for me, that's an intriguing question for me. My dream keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I think maybe, for the sake of the audience, maybe you could shed more light on that. Like, what is the dream?
So, I think coming back to your first statement, like not knowing what to define me as. I'm an enabler.
Yeah.
So you'll find that I'm multifaceted.
Yeah.
That word, I have discovered the true meaning of multifaceted.
Yeah.
So I'm an enabler, and that requires one to be, I think, engaged. One to be, I think, very interested in multiple things that are driving change.
Yeah.
I love to call myself a change agent. So for me to be able to demonstrate my capabilities to enable and handhold people and provide platforms and create a pipeline of opportunities, I need to be able to find myself in certain rooms. I need to be able to study, keep building my knowledge bank, but most importantly, be a conduit of opportunities and resources. And that's what I like to call myself.
Yeah.
I'm one person who most people will call, including ministers, oh, I need a number to this person.
Nice.
Even if I don't have the number, for some reason, because I've been asked, I'll take the step and find the number. So everyone assumes I have everybody's number. When in actual fact, the minute you ask me, there's a responsibility and also a level of trust you're placing on me that I would be the one to know.
Yeah.
So for me, that means that I have to find the number.
Yeah.
So I'll go out of my way, get the number, send it to them, and then I realize I'm actually not a directory. But then I think that's what also separates us from the rest, right? And it's, for me, it's a power, it's a strength. The fact that I'm so knowledgeable, it doesn't make me smarter than most. It just makes me the person that will actually go and get things done, period, right? So with that comes a responsibility now to deliver. And that, you cannot sleep on that.
Yeah.
So literally, I sleep, 3-4 hours at most, every other day. And because I'm busy and I'm doing multiple things, and I've, even from like when I was young, I've never been one that does one thing and stick to that.
Yeah.
I've always found myself doing multiple things at a time and being involved in several things that I'm passionate about. And that's the thing with me. You will never find, a lot of people say you do so much. No, it's because you don't know me. I do the things that matter. I'm very purposeful and purpose driven. So if you know me very well, you actually realize there's a pattern to even the things I get involved in. I'm not doing everything. I'm doing the things that matter, and in a way they're interconnected. So it's about being intentional, it's about being relevant, but also keep building yourself so you can keep enabling. Because with that comes a huge responsibility. An enabler, it's not easy. There are people like literally depending on you, so you can't sleep. While they're sleeping, you're working so that when they come and ask questions, they come and bring problems or challenges, you have answers. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out here trying to save the world. If you've been to my WhatsApp,
Yeah.
it has a default message like if I'm not responding, it means I'm out there saving the world. Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of people love that message. I've gotten so many so much feedback and people responding and saying, oh, this is actually very good. Like they laugh and smile, and a lot of people said this actually motivated me. When I was crafting that message, at that time I was thinking, what am I doing? I am saving the world.
Yeah.
And I always come up with these things that I want to inspire. Like if you come in contact with me on my socials or anything, I want you to feel inspired. I want you to, it should trigger something that would want you to go and change the world. Yeah. I want to influence
I think there's something that I also found interesting on bio. It's not a structured bio. It wasn't really like someone putting their thoughts together and just bringing it out there.
Yeah.
I think in the bio, what I also noticed is that you mentioned something about like every day is an opportunity to learn. As in, so things like that. It's not really structured. So it also speaks into what you're saying about the WhatsApp messages as well. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
George, if I can pick up from you. So Mara, two-part question, right? First one is, what do you do? Shortest version of that. I know you're multifaceted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what do you do?
I'm an ecosystem builder.
Right.
Yeah, and an enterprise support person, basically an enabler. So I enable businesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go back. So how did Mara get here? So basically, this is who Mara is now, ecosystem builder, enabler, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Where was Mara born? Where did she go to school? Out of mom and dad, uncles, aunties, granddad, where did this trait come from? Right.
So I was born here in Lusaka
Yes, ma'am.
to a single mom, a hustler.
I pulled those on 4 very fast.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so I got really, like, even when I was young, I used to see how my mom, like, she traveled. That's where my love for travel came from.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
She traveled quite a lot. So she was a cross-border trader. Owned several shops in town center at the time, and Kamwala market, one of the biggest markets in Zambia. And she was never home. So my poor kids, they're literally experiencing what I went through. She was never home. Most of the time she was traveling, but she took care of her home.
Yeah.
She gave me some level of love for being a parent that just provides for her kids. Then on the flip side, my dad gave me my love for planes, because he at the time was working for Zambia Airways, and then he was MD for national airports. So every time we'd have our monthly dates at the airport, he was busy, so he would just push us to the PA and she would take us to see the plane. Like literally every month I'll be seeing the plane, because that was the only thing you do. So that actually made me love flying more than I looked at this gigantic British Airways plane, Zambia Airways, and I was like, I want to be in that thing. I want to live there. And that just it just triggered something that I realized I wanted to be someone that would travel extensively. But growing up with a single parent also made me realize the hardships of parenting. I didn't understand my mom. I thought she was psycho, because parents back in the day, everything. Like my mom was a no person. Like there was no time she would say yes to anything. Can I play? No. Can my friends come over? No. And that, for me, I think that's what also made me the parent I am today. Because I realized I didn't like that kind of parenting. So there are a lot of things that I did and undo in my day now as a parent. But coming back to that, where did I grow up? So I went to Lotus, primary.
I remember Lotus. It's not still around, eh?
It is.
Is it?
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, I remember Lotus.
Did a short stance at LISEF, then went to Kawe High School. From Kawe High School, went to Excellence Christian Academy. I was the best student. I was by default appointed we never had prefects. They used to call them like caretaker. So I was appointed caretaker. And I always compete with this girl Komao. She was so good and structured and like orderly Indian girl. And I said, I'm going to beat her. So I was that competitive. But she actually inspired me. So it was her and me that were competing and would always like cross, like
because-
this
yeah.
month I'm taking the trophy she's taking, but she actually pushed me and inspired me because I wanted to beat her. And then from there I went to NIPA, did a diploma in project management.
Hey, are you still in touch with Kumar?
Come out, no,
Yeah.
I'm not, but I heard she got married.
Shame.
Our friends.
All right.
Wait, why is it shame?
No, shame that they're not in touch. Not shame that she's that she's not married. No, shame that they're not in touch.
No, but you
No,
see,
go, yeah.
you see, for me also, it's like those are seasons, right?
Yeah.
And very few people cross over,
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very few people. I feel like don't carry people
Right.
if you don't need to.
Right.
So only people that I'm really, really intentional about our relationship and our friendship, there's some level of alignment, those I'll carry to the next, chapter of my life. I will know you, will talk, maybe, meet, but I don't need to remain friends with you. And for me, that has been very clear. So
Yeah, right.
some of the people that I remember from primary, high school, college, very few I've carried over
Right.
with me to the next life. Even workplaces, very few. So if you are one of those people that has become my friend and I can take you to the next season, it means there's something about you that aligns with my vision, where I'm going, and we have a good relationship. I just don't like clutter. And for me, it's baggage. When you carry too many people, like quality over quantity always.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
So this was around what time? So Kumar was, I'm assuming, this was secondary school.
That was secondary. So I did
Right.
my secondary at Kawe
Yeah.
High School.
Right.
And then I went and finished. I did my SATs at Excellence Christian Academy.
Right.
And my A-levels there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a small Christian school in Kawe. They did the American program, which is the American curriculum ACE.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not a very common program.
Okay.
Only few schools offer that in Zambia, but
Yeah.
in Kawe that was the first
First,
of its kind, and it graduated some pretty decent people.
Maybe a quick question riding on top of that. I know we have a few minutes before we break, but the quick question is, did you travel with your mom on some of
Never.
those? Did she ever take you on any of our jaunts?
No, the woman never took me anywhere.
How did you end up in Kabwe?
so she didn't. But moving to Kawe, my mom died when I was 9. Maybe she would have had she stayed longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom died when I was 9. 2 years later, my father died when I was 11. And a whole shift
Yeah.
happened when she died, and then my dad died. When my father died, I met my father's children, my siblings, my
Right.
brothers and sisters,
Wow, for the first
because
time.
for the first time at my dad's funeral, that was like so bizarre.
Yeah.
It was like the most shocking experience ever.
Right.
Imagine an 11-year-old realizing that she has older siblings, and for the longest time I thought
You were the one.
my immediate brother and I were like the oldest, and like good person obviously has young
Yeah.
kids somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, where does he go? Where does he live? Because he came to us, we never went to him.
Yeah.
So when I discovered my siblings, it was like a mental shock,
Right.
cultural shock, everything. So then, basically just because of some of the hardships that I experienced on the other side, I really wanted to get out.
Right.
So I asked my oldest brother from my dad's side if I could move with him, and he was like, yeah, we need to get to know you, so
Right.
absolutely. And that's how I moved. And that's the thing, right? That's now how I know I'm one of the bravest people I know. Because even then, I don't like to stay where I'm uncomfortable. Even then, I knew I needed to get out. I needed to survive that part of my life. So when I saw an opportunity, I jumped,
You
and I
took
just
it.
said, ask.
Yeah.
And I just asked, I said, can I move? I'm so unhappy. This is what's happening. And he just saw it fit and said, look, let's go. Pack your things. And I packed my things out. I went to Kawe. We lived on a farm, and that was my other life starting with my brother and my dad's relatives.
No, like for me, what you take away from is there's two transitions of like your life.
Yeah.
And like you put it in a nutshell, but there's really 0 to about 9,
Yeah.
right? 9 to 11, right? Then 11 going forward.
Yeah.
What did you take away 0 to 9? What did you take away from there, from that part of your life?
I think 0 to 9 for me was, I parenting back in the day, I just didn't understand it. I was very inquisitive, like
Yeah.
very, very inquisitive as a child. I asked questions, and my mom was that strict parent. Everything just
Do as I say,
became
not as I do.
exactly. And I, at that age, I reconciled and said, I do not want to be this kind of parent. And I'll tell her, I said, when I have children, I'm not going to be like you. And she said, what does that mean? I'm like, you're mental.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong? Like, why are you so angry? But you see, she was trying to do her best. And what she knew as her best is raise my child well so that they don't become a nuisance.
Right.
So for her, use the road.
To cure
Yeah.
any-
You know, and I asked so many questions, and it was always, you talk too much, you're stubborn, you're what? I'm like, no. What we call stubborn then, or what we called stubborn then, is just confident. And I was
Right.
super confident even at that time.
Yeah.
So the other thing also is blood is not thicker than water. That's something. When my mom died, it was like 360 degrees. It changed
Switch, yeah.
instantly. Like I felt the switch from living with my mom, and you know, the next it just felt different. Everything changed. So one thing I picked from there that I now apply now. I'm raising my kids to know that they have each other, and they should not depend on others, and they should be super independent at a young age so that they do not have to. If they don't need to, they don't have to. Luckily, my daughter turned 18 at on the 16th, just a few days ago, and I told her I've been training or preparing her to even for me to take over the wheel. So now she's automatically an administrator.
Yeah.
So now I have to take her through that discussion with the lawyer, like this is what it is. I have to now take her through everything that I have built as a person, things that she's going to inherit, how I want things structured. So I'm already having those conversations because at 9, I was not prepared for death.
Yeah.
It hit me in the face.
Yeah.
At 11, I was not prepared for that other death.
Yeah.
So we as Africans, we don't prepare for death. We
Yeah.
never have
Yeah.
had, people don't even want to talk about death.
It's a
But
taboo.
I have been talking to the kids and saying, if I died, you have the 3 of you.
Yeah.
It's just you should focus on the 3 of you first. And if you're going to ask for help, this is how I want you to ask for help. Everything else I have set up in such a way that you'll be able to at least survive to a certain extent. Right? And those are hard conversations, but we must have them because I was never ready. Emotionally, mentally, it just, a 9-year-old is not prepared to live that life.
All right, so we're back from our break, and it has been a fantastic first run. I mean, I've heard secrets that have kept my ears ringing right now. You know. I mean, if I didn't know better, I'd say that she was my Nigerian sister with all this. You know. But it is what it is, and you know, a testament to the upbringing. I think it has shaped the sort of person that you've turned into, and especially the work you've delivered on. But before we go too far, I would like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Ultra Lekker. And they are very, very, what was the word you used? Ambience. Ambience. It's unbelievable. Location.
Aesthetically amazing.
Exactly. And you made a point, you pointed out the mural behind us, and it is like one of those very fantastic locations.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be very thankful to them for giving us an opportunity to shoot on ground. We're hoping that this will be one of those sustainable partnerships where we'll be having subsequent shoots. But shout out to Ultra Lekker.
Yep.
And please, if you are looking for your wines, gins, whiskeys, this is the place.
To be.
Today.
And price-wise, I don't think with the way the dollar is behaving, I think it's a very good place to buy.
The dollar.
You know? But again, we are delving back into the second half of this very enviable discussion. And since we've dealt with the initial setup of Mara, background, family, and the insights into what has shaped her into who she is now, my leading question, of course, subject to inputs from the rest of my colleagues, would be this. From a standpoint, what would you say is the largest contribution from your upbringing into the choices that you made, either towards Jankara Hub or any of your other endeavors?
So I think for me, it's when I'm inconvenienced,
Okay.
I need to change
Right.
the narrative.
Yeah.
I need to fix things. So for me, life is about convenience. So if I'm not comfortable with where I'm sitting, if I'm not comfortable with the environment I'm in, instead of complaining, I see opportunities to change that space. Disruption. So I'm a disruptor. I've been a disruptor from childhood. So always looking for opportunities to change the spaces, because how many times are you going to shift? If you're uncomfortable here, you move to the next place because you're thinking it's greener on the other side. But guess what? Even with that green grass that you're finding on the other side, at some point it's dry, like now we're in February and it's completely dry. What do? Do you move to another green place where the weather is different? So for me, it's about being where I am and effecting change in that space and then moving on to the next thing, because I have done enough, or I've done what I needed to do here and I need to move. So that kind of just changed the person I am today. So I always say there's the 0.01% of people on earth, right? I want to call them your quasi beings, right? That have been ordered. Their steps are ordered to do certain things and do certain things differently for the rest of the world. And it's understanding that power that you possess. Very few people recognize the power. And that's why we miss the opportunity. We miss our window because you don't recognize the power that has been instilled in you. So if you don't know who you are, and it comes down to self-awareness, if you don't take time to ask the right questions, it's not about asking questions, it's about asking the right questions. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? So it's recognizing, usually our relationship to being different is always taken with conformity. Because everyone complains about how different you are, you want to conform to their description or perception of you. So you miss the opportunity to recognize that you are actually an authoritarian. You have been given the authority to supersede and oversee. And I'm very lucky that purposefully I became super aware, and the level of discernment I had at a young age of knowing that I'm not ordinary. So every space I occupy, I know that I am extraordinary, I am not average, I'm going there, and I'm very competitive enough to even understand that I'm not here to just be, conform, just, get lost in the mass. I go in and I'm like, we're in this space. What are we going to do different? And so that's important for people to recognize, and very few people recognize that, and that's why it's a 0.01%. People talk about entrepreneurship and say it's lonely. No. It's only lonely because you don't recognize the people in that space and you don't create the networks and the relationships that you need to nurture. When you know your people, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So I'll go to Chinedu, I'll go to George, and I've gotten my answers within a flash. I'm not looking for clutter. I'm looking for quality. Therefore, I need to know that I have to be in an exclusive club of people. So it's about recognizing and respecting the space that you occupy. We don't need to exist among the many, because you cannot lead from here. You have to go before people so that you are leading them into greatness. If you are leading them from here, you'll stop seeing ahead. So there's all these things that you need to pick up and understand what your character defines. Like, who are you? So when I think about me and where I am today and how my childhood contributed to that, I made a decision when I was young, with all the hardships. Moving to Kawe, living on the farm, it wasn't the easiest. Some of those stories will be for another day. So I had a very traumatic encounter. And this encounter kind of also reminded me that entitlement is a cancer. And I'm only making reference to cancer because cancer is horrible. But the severity of the impact cancer has on a person, that is what it is mentally and emotionally. I was entitled. And I was asking for things that I felt I deserved. And then I was reminded and I was told, I'm not your father. I'm not your provider. Do not stress me. I have my own stresses. Find an answer. That was the best gift. I cried for 5 days, but after that, I was just like, whew,
Something
reality.
impacted the positive.
The reality of that just shook me. And because of that, I don't feel entitled. I work for everything. I earn. When I say I deserve this, is because I worked my way into the space. So you need to recognize your level of entitlement is what blocks your growth. When you start feeling like you deserve this, I'm entitled to this, you don't grow. Because then you're not working or earning, right? You are just taking without really validation. So that kind of helped me even with where I am today. Because as an entrepreneur, if you're entitled, you're done. How many times do you go and pitch to someone and you get a no? Do you come back broken or do you come back with answers? How many times do you get no even when you feel I did everything, like this was a perfect pitch? I'll get this. I know this is coming to me, and they say no. Misalignment. You're not entitled to anything. I don't owe you anything. And that's something a lot of young people don't get. I don't owe you anything. I need you to earn your seat at the table. And if the table is full, go make another table. And invite others to the table, because like you, there are others who are also trying to get in. So a lot of what happened when I was young really just helped me shape the person, the Mara that I am today. And I'm grateful for all the hardships that I went through, because I can tell you a million stories that I go back and say, oh, that little girl, I'm glad she went through that, because today she can withstand, she can hold her own because of the person that she had to survive. So there's a point in your life where you're surviving, but you can't survive forever. You get to a point where you thrive, because now you know. You can't be surviving even in your 40s. What are you doing? So there's a level or a season in your life where you're literally surviving because you're still in the discovery mode. And then there's a level now where you start thriving. And this also comes down to understanding what success means. You cannot thrive when you don't know what success means to you.
So picking up from the conversation, I think you've highlighted more season, which I like very much, and also the aspect of I think knowing exactly when to switch, right? I think the part that I know about, maybe people don't know about, is the fact that entrepreneurship has not always, I could say maybe it's been the journey, but obviously there's a corporate side before entrepreneurship, right? But I'm curious to know when that journey ended, the corporate side, and then your decision to now become who you are right now. Also just tying on to the dream that you mentioned earlier. So when did that happen, and how did transition happen for you?
So again, it comes back to survival. Of course, my first job, straight out of high school, A-levels, I went and started working for an NGO where I worked for like 6 years. And the NGO world is not quite like your corporate world, right? And at that time, your NGOs are still trying to create structure. And I worked for a sport for development NGO. And it was relatively new, so even systems were not in place. So I started as a volunteer, no pay, but I loved it. I felt relevant because I was bringing something.
No pay as an intern, or no pay just?
No pay because I was a volunteer.
I see, okay.
And then, so for me, like, I get bored easily when I feel like I'm not adding value. So instead of moving, I saw opportunities within the organization where there were gaps, like your institutional gaps. And I said, oh, you don't have, I've seen people come in and out, employees go in and out. There's no system. Dude, like I had no experience. This is a person coming out of school, but I knew there was something missing. So I started researching, and that's the thing about research, It's so much power. Data is power. So that in itself also helped me, because I just went and started researching, what job can I do in this space? And I went and told my boss at the time, and I said, we don't have an administration officer, we don't have proper HR systems. So I was researching job descriptions for what I could do. So I went and created my position, and I told him, you need this person. And he said, that actually makes sense. We don't have this person, and it would make sense. So he says, okay, give me a job description. Say no more. Okay, so how much should we pay you? Tell me how much we should pay. He was that type of person. Tell me how much. But I understood myself, because I gave myself, like when you're telling yourself, I want this. So for him to say yes, I'll start here. And of course, I was so young and clueless. So I gave him, I undervalued. But again, is it really undervaluing when you have no experience? You know what I mean? I wanted to learn more than get money. Right? So I got the job. And then 1 year later, I saw an opportunity. I went to him. I said, look, I've put the systems in place, at least there's order, but then I'm finding this kind of work very monotonous. I want a challenge. So he then said, okay, we can give you a project officer role. And I took it.
Elevated.
Yes, but then at that point, I realized I wasn't equipped to do the work. Because then I was doing a project management role, or project officer role, that required a lot of project management. And at that point, initially I'd wanted to do law, right? But I wasn't ready to go to uni. So at that point, then I said, no, actually my passion is in social development. So let me do something that would help me do my job better. And I think that's the thing that young people should really take up. Don't go to university without knowing why you want to go to university. Don't take up a course or go to a school where you don't know why. Don't do something because you want a job. Do something because you want to make a difference. Then you will actually enjoy and you will grow in the space. So that's the opportunity I had. I had the opportunity of going into an environment that actually told me these are the tools I needed for me to deliver and do my job well. University should not get you a job. University should equip you to do your job well. Flip side.
Okay.
Right? So then I did the course. I went and did project management at NIPA, and I loved it. I was in a full-time job and attending school full-time.
Interesting.
Because I didn't want to do the night. I said I could do it. So I had to make the lecturers my friends, because I would miss school so much. I'm out for 5 days, and my lecturer is like, okay, just come and get your coursework. You'll find it. And I graduated. But do you know why I graduated? Because a lot of the things I was studying actually made sense for my job. So I was interested, I was learning, I was excited about it. So that was basically that whole scenario for me. And transitioning into the corporate, so I worked for multiple organizations, Sport in Action. Like for the first 8 years, I was in not-for-profit organizations, and I loved the environment. Sport in Action.
So 8 years in corporate.
8 years, in NGO space. Yeah. And then I started my own stint. I did this gig for like 2.5 years. First lesson of IP, trusting government. So I did something, and this is where I know, like, I'm one of the boldest people. I wanted to do something different. And so I started asking, for some reason, I started reading about cancer, and I was seeing the numbers in the newspaper. I'm like, why is this? Like, why is there so much cervical cancer in Zambia? So I went to the Cancer Diseases Hospital. Before the cancer, I went to the cervical center, the cervical cancer center at UTH. And I asked at that time, I think she's still there, Dr. Sharon Kapembo. I'm like, what is the challenge? Like, why do we have so many numbers? She explained everything. And the one thing she told me is that the biggest challenge we have is early detection. Cancer is curable, but a lot of people come in their
Later.
Fourth stage, like it's already too late for us to. And I said, okay, so what can we do? Then she says, early detection. We need to have more opportunities for people, especially in rural areas, women, to have themselves tested prior to them having the cancer. And I said, okay, what can I do to help? She says, no, one of the things we need is resources. we don't have a big budget. It's something very new in Zambia. There's no direct financing for it. And then I started researching. 2 weeks later, I'm watching DSTV. I see this beautiful campaign on DSTV that what is that? Discovery was showing, and an Old Mutual, and it's a Pink Drive campaign. I'm like, oh, this is cool. They have this marathon. They're fundraising for cancer. I'm like, this is interesting. So they do like your mobile screening trucks that go around in rural areas across the country, and they're screening people, and they're basically focusing on early detection. I said, that's what I want to do. So I wrote them. The number was there, the email. I wrote to her, Nolene, the founder. 2 weeks later, she didn't respond. I sent another email. Oh, I sent an email. I'd like to know more about what you're doing. Then she responded and said, oh, I'm so sorry. I traveled, but I'm around now. I'm in SA. Do you want to come and see? We can talk about what you want to do. I'm intrigued that you want to even support this area. And that's it. Went to Joburg.
Really?
Yeah, I just got some money. And I wasn't making money, like a lot of money at the time. But I got some money, went to Joburg. At the airport, she picks me up and says, where are you staying? I said, oh, I booked an apartment this side. She says, no, you're going to stay in my house in Barnston.
Wow. That's great.
And I was at a house for 5 days.
Nice.
But she gave me everything, literally everything. And that's how I came and started.
So Samara, like up to that point, right? Because you said a number of things, and I hope like our listeners and just us three, because like this conversation, I think like the thing about this conversation is we are gleaning from you, you're gleaning from us, and we are hoping we're asking the questions that people who see this then also want to ask, right? You said that university students need to know what they're going to university for before they get into university, right? We don't have that. I know that because I went to UNZA.
Yeah.
Orientation was almost zero, right? What's missing there? One, right? Two, I think you talked about, like, I think when people look at your life and what you've done, and you're going to get to that. Chinori talked about Jacaranda Hub. Yeah. You're now in Solwezi. You've talked about dealing with the government before the tobacco companies and all those things. I think people don't see the seasons. People don't see the seasons, that there's a season for being inspired. Yeah. There's a season for developing capacity for the inspiration. Yeah. And where, delay is not a denial. Ooh. You know what I mean? And the problem with that is you learn that with time and experience and age. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then when you get to the thing that you basically have been building, that what the delay has been buffering for, my IT guys will get it. Yeah, you kind of, you actually wish that you hadn't hurried so much. Yeah. You know what I mean? You wish you had actually built capacity a bit longer. Absolutely. Yeah. You had a season of, I am going after it. I'm passionate, pink drive, all those things, right? Yeah. And then you had the delay where you're building capacity. And then everything now is just like suddenly just happening now, and then all of these seasons make sense. Yeah. I think like a lot of people who are, especially like the girl child, they don't see that. Yeah. Yeah. When they see you, they see entitlement. Yeah. And you've talked about why that comes from and why you are not entitled. Because for us who know you, you've worked your butt off for what you've got. And then also when they see you and what you look like, they don't think when they say, oh yeah, female whatever of the year is Mara, and then they see you go up there, like that is not who we picture. You know what I mean? So I think I would like for you to talk a bit about that. Like what do we need, or what does someone need, right, to have a mindset coming from school where they sort of understand what to chase as they go into university, right? Yeah. And then also we can jump into a bit of confidence. Right? There is Mara, the confident person. There's a Mara who's got a heart for the people. Right? Those two people. You can talk about those two people a little bit. Where does your heart come from? Yeah.
I think my heart comes from, I'll start with the heart part, right? My heart comes from most of the things that I'm trying to resolve, I experienced. Yeah. I went through starving. I went through physical and emotional abuse. Yeah. I went through regret. Yeah. I went through just not knowing. Yeah. I went through a point where I just said, I'm done
Yeah.
with life. Like, this is not it. This is not what I want. Both when I was young and when I was older, and I made decisions that made me regret so much. And I was like, you know what? This is not what I want for my life. And therefore, I feel like the purpose for living does not make sense.
Right.
And people always confuse that with being suicidal. No. Giving up is very easy, and it doesn't always lead to suicide. It leads to you giving up, period. And when you give up, it's here. The people that commit suicide, it's either it's clinical, or there's an emotion that they're not addressing that keeps building, and it leads them to losing hope. And when a human being loses hope, guys, there's nothing worth living for. At that point, anything goes. So we should not overlook when a person is giving up. We should identify that and help people like that. So for me, one of the things that I want to feed off and like just project into the world is that you are going to be okay. I always say something, and if you follow my post, I'll always say, even when I'm down, I am winning. Because even on your last day, I believe that person that took their life, even on their last day, if they actually just took a time and audited their environment and their lives, they would have realized there was something good happening in their life, because it's not always bad. But they didn't, because they were fixated on the horrible things that were happening, and that's what drove them. Right? I always say, even when I'm down, I'm winning, because I promise you, it's a balance. Life is so balanced that if you don't pay attention and you don't structure your life where you recognize who you are and what surrounds you, you will miss the opportunity to say, you know what, it's bad, but there's this also happening. Maybe I should hold on to this for now and put this on the side so that I don't lose everything. So that's pretty much it. And emotional intelligence, it's a gift.
I love it.
Look, if you're going to go to university, the first thing they should give you is emotional intelligence. Forget everything else. A lot of young people right now, there's unemployment, right? The numbers are high. But a lot of the unemployment is actually, it's not as actual as we make it sound. There are jobs out there. There are startups that are building businesses that can't employ half of the people that graduate from university, because the mismatch is so real.
Huge.
Right? There's a 25-year-old startup that is running a company. There are 25-year-old students, graduates, that need jobs. Will they listen to the 25-year-old startup CEO who's literally also trying to mature as a business person? So they don't have everything all figured out. Do you understand that? And then they'll end up now going for the professional support and end up spending more. And that will lead to their business failing, because now they're taking on more overheads than they can afford, because they're a startup company. Do you see the disconnect? The students are not being prepared for the industry and the transitions that the industry, like the dynamics of this new industry, this entrepreneurial ecosystem that we're building. We don't have young people that actually understand. My CEO is 24. She's younger than me. She doesn't have everything figured out. She's literally trying to build a company, right? She's not an expert in everything, but she's doing something that is actually creating value, right? So that mismatch is what's creating the unemployment gap, or contributing. Let me not say creating. It's contributing to the unemployment gap, because Zambia is not your knowledge hub. It's very what do you call it? It's very entrepreneurial driven, right? You've got a lot of informal businesses. So it's driven by your informal businesses. So what happens in an informal business? Structure. The reason they're called an informal business is because they don't have structure. They still generate revenue, a lot of it, enough for them to build a business that can create employment that we need. But they don't have the knowledge or the systems to be able to build those formal structures, and they will get there eventually. right? So that already creates a massive gap. The emotional intelligence is what a lot of our young people lack.
Wow.
And the
Alright.
staying power. Woo.
Here's a challenge for you. Would you be willing to do an employment expo where you say, all those looking for employment, either going to university or coming for university, we are going to book Mulongoshi, we'll come there. And we orient you on what the
industry
mismatch.
needs,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that.
No,
Is
we don't.
there an employment expo in Zambia? We don't have that.
No. And back in the day, there was career. Look, what those career expos did was just tell you, be a doctor, be a teacher, no. Zambia is not that economy. Zambia is your MSMEs, your SMEs, hustlers doing their thing to keep this economy running. Most of those people need employees that are committed. And they don't have everything figured out. But are they solving a problem? If I don't have my systems in place, but I employ 30 people, am I not solving the one problem that the government is trying to resolve? Unemployment. But then we have a lot of young people that see that and say, I can do what he's doing. He's not even a good boss. No, last time I even saw him drunk. Yeah, he's not yet developed as a leader. He's on that journey. So all that is also built from entitlement, where the only place I want to be employed is where I see a whole big company with already built systems. But you need to understand, before MTN became MTN, where did it start from? Who started Access? May his soul rest in peace, right? When he started, was Access where it is now? He just had a brilliant idea, right? And he built it from the ground up. So let's give grace to small businesses that are just trying to start. The guys that are recording this right now, these are a small business trying to build their business. A group of young people who are passionate and they do a good job. Do they have systems? Most probably not. They just like each other enough to do the work, right? But what we don't do is give grace. And as Zambians, one of the things we do, we shoot each other down extensively. We don't respect the fact that there's a person here who's building a company and they're working their way up. Give them enough grace to build their company to a level where it can now become that entity that you love to see and talk about and say, I want to work in that company. We don't have the staying power.
Can I maybe comment, because you raised a number of very interesting points. It's a follow-up to his question. And also because you've played in the NGO space, you've played in the corporate sector. So you have a very deft understanding of what this space requires and what that space requires. And you also dealt with government. So the question would be, and I say this on the basis of being an outsider. So I'm also speaking from an outsider looking in and also having experienced the same environment as well. Would you, in a certain sense, attribute the happenings to perhaps also the stage that Zambia is at? And I'll set the context. Bear in mind that Zambia was a one-party state up till 1990, where the government provided everything. Remember, you also pointed out at your entry points where you would speak about the mentality of what the tradition has been. So if the tradition has been government provides this, government gives jobs, what do you expect? So it is only now, upon the advent of multi-party state politics and all the rest of them, that has opened it up. Hence, what we are seeing now. So my point would be, should we not be looking at this as a growth trajectory of Zambia, getting to the destination it is eventually deemed for, and that these mistakes are part of the growing or learning process? Thank you.
And to add on to what you're saying, Chinedu, I've had the chance to, when I went to China, all my roommates were from Ethiopia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, North and South Sudan. Unfortunately, we had Chad as well. Yeah, I had a chance to go to Kenya. I've been to South Africa, right? And the point of that is not the travel. The point of that is we all complain about the same thing, right? The Kenyans will say, no, Kenyans don't appreciate you know, the people who are in leadership, you know. And I think it's this African thing, right? And that's why collaboration becomes a really big thing. And also maybe not thinking inside this bubble where we think it's only Zambians that feel like Zambians don't support each other. Zambians belittle structure. Zambians are not structured. This is a problem in Zambia, it's a problem in Kenya, it's a problem in Zimbabwe, it's a problem, you know, it's an African problem. And you know, you contextualize it very well because, I mean, if we only got multi-party state in 1991, then when did Zimbabwe get it? When did South Africa get it? You know, and all those things. So you can see that we're infants, really. How old are we? 24? As a free country, right? With free thinking, with places like where we are starting up, you know. So it's a good point. And I think that's where what George has been doing, what you are doing with Jacaranda Hub, and all the things that you are doing now, what that has become. That's why they need to hear these stories. They need to know the seasons. The seasons are the seasons. And it's difficult, you know. There's times where you're going to have to work for pay, times where you're going to have to push inspiration.
Sweat equity.
You know, exactly.
Sweat, especially the sweat part.
Go ahead.
So maybe my follow-up, and you actually mentioned the point I was going to raise. Strange enough that you always bring these things in. So similar to him, there's a trip to China that I made. We were seconded to go and study the Alibaba Foundation e-founders program. Now something very interesting happened there. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is it seems to coincide with what she's already doing or what she's probably putting in the pipeline. It's just that, like she has mentioned, the wheels of government turn slowly. So it requires a lot of patience, which, you know, if you look at the vested time she has put in there, it's been quite a lot. So what the Chinese have done is that within their very curriculum, they stipulate in some universities that you start a business, you learn to start. In fact, it's a course. You start a business in the university. And we were very fortunate that when we showed up there, we happened to show up at a day when they had pre-selected a number of people. So we had like about 3 people. First person comes up. He's less than 20. He's about 18 or 19. And he says, apologetically, even laughing, you know, I was like, okay, what is this guy talking about? And he says, no. Okay, so what did you make the year before? He says, we're generating something like $500. What are you making now? Okay, somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500. And I'm thinking about that and thinking of what my salary was then. I was like, me and my suit are overpriced here. You know, but I keep quiet. The next guy comes in and, you know, his name is, strange enough, you know, a Chinese guy named Muhammad. You know?
Chinese.
From one of the very few Muslim areas. And the guy is just apologetic and he's saying things like, you know, he's always very fascinated whenever these e-founder programs happen because it has introduced him to a number of new customers in other sections of the world. If a family business and all, and since he's been doing this, they're making about $100,000 per month. I was like, wow. But you see the guy is wearing shorts. And he's about 20. Then the next guy comes in, and that one was really the sucker punch for the whole thing. Because if you were to walk past the same person, first he was sounding hoarse, he came in apologetic. He had a pink shirt. It was the guy had a pink shirt with like a picture of a unicorn. Wearing glasses. So you just look at him and like, this picture is wrong. Right? And then he's apologetic. No, my voice is wrong because we just finished training. I have 3 business models. So I help companies that are in Europe that are trying to get into China. I help companies that are in China that are trying to get into Europe and US. And then I do trainings and all. And then he showed us a home. Okay, how much do you make? And then this guy says something like $2.6 million.
Wow.
And at that point in time, that pink shirt he's wearing has far more value than me and my suit and everything I stood for in my life. But the lesson for me fundamentally was, if in the university, these guys from income ranges of $500 all the way to 2.6 million had not even graduated, and that's what they were doing. Imagine them as our ages. Where would they be? How many businesses would they have hoped? Would they have understood all the mechanics? And this is the funny thing about this program. One, you are supposed to select among your course-mates and all, those who come in and help the business.
Yeah.
So for instance, customer care, especially if you're dealing with foreign, you go and pick somebody who is studying English to man the customer care desk.
Yeah.
And it was so logical
Yeah.
how they solved the problem. It wasn't a question of how much they made specifically, as in how well they grew the business. So if you make it a course in the university, and this is something that I've heard repeatedly on the radio fairly recently, where they are looking at changing the curriculum to be more reflective of the modern realities of the job space.
Yeah.
And the question simply is this, and because I know it's a space she plays in, and I know that she does advocacy.
Yes.
It's serious, great deal.
Yeah.
You know? And the thing is that how do you convince government to, because the thing is, even if you were to tell them, it's still new to them.
Yeah.
We don't expect them to just get up and say, what she's saying.
Yeah.
The wheels of government still turn slow.
Yeah.
But it does turn.
Of course.
So it's a question of how do we adopt the best practices that we have seen in our respective journeys across the communities we've dealt with, take some of those best ideas and distill them in a way that works for Africa, for Africans, maybe on the Zambian side, on the Kenyan side, on the Sudanese side, on the Namibian side, or Rwanda. I'll give you a very simple example. Recently, Rwanda has launched an Innovate in Rwanda program.
Yes.
She's aware. Zambia is not too far off, and proximity-wise, we know how close we are.
Yeah.
We've seen the raft of investments coming in. So maybe the question to throw, and this is now where my questions will come out, would be, from your experience, what would you see as the requirements to get Zambia ready to participate in such programs? I think that would be a capstone of it, especially being that you've played a very pivotal role in some of these engagements.
Okay, so,
The anointing is
Lord
upon
dead,
thee.
I'm just feeling the, I'm about to preach.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that actually got me, when I decided to set up Jacaranda Hub, I was doing a consultancy in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Guys, I was not even experienced. Let's just say, at that time, my LinkedIn was so good that I got a gig to help. Yes, in Zimbabwe. They just reached out and said, "Oh, your content is good. We're setting up a radio station. Can you come and help us? We want content." I said, "Say no more." Like Steve, Richard Branson says, when you're offered an opportunity, say yes.
Yeah.
And then go and
Of research.
research.
Yeah. Build capacity.
Build your capacity and then come and offer the service.
Of course.
And that's what I am, basically. So when I set up J-Hub, right, before I even said I'm doing this, I was still doing like some jobs on the side and whatever. I went to Youth Connect in Rwanda. So I'd gone to Smart Africa Alliance Conference, which is Transform Africa. And there I met the Minister of Youth and ICT. I met Rwanda for me, first time I was just like, yo, the energy.
I know.
The president's speech, Paul Kagame has been my mentor without rowing, he's my mentor. That man drops so much, like African presidents should think like him. So then the Minister of Youth and ICT said, "Oh, we've got a big program coming up in a couple of months. Youth Connect. You should be here." I said, "Definitely." Whew, now this is the story.
Yeah.
This is the story. You need to listen to it some other time. I went to Youth Connect with $80 in my account, and I was there for 5 days.
Wow.
I had no money.
This is like
But
the story of Jesus and fish. Eh?
Yo, I turned 5 fish into 5,000 fish, guys. But you see, it's also about understanding the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, a time in your life will come when you need to sacrifice something. Seasons. And if you don't obey the journey, and it's obedience, huh?
Yeah, it's obedience.
I don't care what religion you are.
Yeah.
Spirituality is a thing.
Yeah.
You may forgo the religion, but accept the spirituality
Yeah.
because there's a higher power.
Of course.
And if you don't understand the power of discernment, you will miss things because there's a principle attached to discernment and spirituality, and that is obedience.
Talk about it.
A lot of the things I have achieved is because I was obedient, and obedience is not easy, because obedience, you are being asked to do something when you know your human flesh is telling you, don't even do it. That's a trap. You're going to get in problems. Like, it doesn't even make sense. I went to Rwanda, and the whole time I was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I went and stayed at a hotel. You know where they ask you, which hotel are you staying at? I'm like, picky dog. And I'm like, okay, let's do math. What's the worst thing that can happen? They'll deport me for not paying my hotel. That's okay. Embarrassment is a fact. And that's the thing. Entrepreneurship, you need to be ready to get embarrassed. I was like, I don't mind. Number 2, where do I want to stay? I need to be at a hotel where it reduces my cost. I can forgo a meal. Man don't live by bread on bread alone. I will forgo the meal. So I need a hotel that is affiliated to the conference so that I get a shuttle. So I reduce my cost. Because if I stay at Airbnb,
you have to.
And then the power of obedience, and this is the thing, right? When you trust the process and realize that it's not you who's curated the journey, there's a higher power. And for me, it's God, right? You realize that, you know what? Test him and see if you fail. So I just said, you know what? I am going on this trip, come sunshine or rain. Say, if I get embarrassed, it will be your embarrassment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm your child, man.
Every time I have left God to do his part,
He has never
he has
failed.
shown me. He shows off. God shows off. Guys, that $80 came back to Zambia in my account. I never paid a dime.
Wow.
Because, funny thing, my cousin was going on that trip.
Nice.
She was going on KQ. We met at the airport. I was going on Rwanda Air. So I'd gotten a ticket on Nkongole and went, right? And I went to Rwanda. That trip changed everything and created the path that I'm on now. At that point, I knew what I wanted to do with J-Hub, but that trip
Opened
brought
your eyes.
clarity and connected me. We've had support from Microsoft from inception, even before we started. And even up to now, we use Microsoft 365 for free through that trip. Some of the partners that we're working with now was through that trip. Some of my biggest gigs with the African Union actually started through my Nigerian friends that I met on that trip. Obedience is important. And I obeyed. Everything in me was saying, what are you doing? Like, who does that? Like, this is like everything. But you see, it's also getting in contact with fear. Fear will always be there. But what you do about it is what will determine the type of person you are.
Can I just add to that? Someone defined it as fear was not meant to be the end result. Fear was a check light that whoever you believe in put there to let you know about danger. And then your response to danger is then what you make it. Is a courage. So fear is a check light. It's not,
I walk through the fires and shadows of death, but I fear no evil because he that walks with me is greater than the things I find. So for me, those, like, yes, we want to, like, be radical about it or fanatical about it and say, oh, the Bible. But those are life lessons.
Yes,
and they were created in the Bible
universal rules
to give us fuel for how we should live. Right? And that trip up to now has been by far one of the most significant things I've done. And I'll make reference to it because something at that point was born. And Jacaranda Hub would not be where it is today because
without that,
if I had not gone through that. And the relationships I have today, my global relationships, would not have become those relationships without me trusting the process and going through that. So it's okay to be fearful. But it's like you said, you need to recognize that as okay, see the flags, see what you need to do, but then walk through it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that you walk through it and you'll be fine. You won't have scars.
The scars come with it.
But scars are good.
Yeah.
Scars are there to help you remember where you're coming from.
Exactly.
They're not there to be ashamed. No, scars help you remember where you're coming from. So you don't forget that this is what I went through to get here. That's what scars do.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be ashamed. And that's why for me, authenticity is important. I am not ashamed. Guys, running Jacaranda Hub has been humbling. It humbles you. And every year, we think you've gone through problems this year. Hey,
you have a new set that you haven't even
I'm
encountered.
fixing these problems, and my new problems have gone to the gym. They're doing push-ups, waiting for me. And then I get into this new season. Oh, we won. Like, at least we got here, we got out, and they're like, oh, wait. Now that you've reached this level, guess what? Your problems went to private school. They are very fluent in problematic things. So the thing about entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
It's also understanding the fact that there's a light that illuminates. Right?
Yeah.
You literally are glowing, and there's people that will gravitate towards you because of what you're portraying or what you're projecting.
Yeah.
I've literally had people say, please, I want to just travel in your bag or travel this, and I want to be like you when I grow up. I'm like, no, you don't. It's not easy. So a lot of what we project to the outside world makes it seem like we're having such a ball, right? When half the time we're fixing problems. So it's also understanding what is your package, your comms package to the outside world. So it's also being authentic. I say when you listen to a motivational speaker and you listen to the entrepreneur, the stories are different. An entrepreneur, like a motivational speaker, will make you think or believe that everything is possible. An entrepreneur will tell you it's gonna be shitty. So prepare yourself. And have the right people holding you because it's not gonna be easy. So the communication is different because one is selling an idea, the other is giving you the pipeline or the journey to that idea. So those two narratives are very different, right?
Makes
So
sense.
I always encourage entrepreneurs to be authentic, because also one of the mistakes we make as enablers or entrepreneurs is that we are so busy doing the work that we forget to tell the story. We need to tell the story because there's a whole line of people coming up that are being told stories by motivational speakers, which are wrong. Entrepreneurs have a responsibility to tell their story so that more people, young people especially, can listen and understand and benefit from that. Right? You don't have to go through the experience. If I've done it already and I can tell you how to not make the same mistakes. And that's where mentorship and coaching comes in. And a lot of people go into rooms and say, I'm looking for a mentor. This space, conversations with the three guys and the guests, is mentorship. It does not always have to be structured. That's the thing. The power, the power about mentorship, it doesn't always have to be a structured conversation directly with one-on-one, interventions. No. Listen, follow the right content, consume the right information. This is part of the mentorship. You don't need a person in front of you physically for you to be mentored. You need to be able to follow podcasts or programs that actually teach you the things you need to learn to improve yourself in that space. This is part of the mentorship. So that's what entrepreneurs need to spend most of. You are 80% of the things you consume.
Wow.
Right? So if you're on social media watching memes and videos of ridiculousness, and you see the thing about social media and the power of AI, right? And algorithms is that what you consume actually becomes your feed.
Exactly.
Everything that comes to your feed is about the things that you are seeing consuming. So you need to change that. Clean your digital tray so that you start putting into your box the right things. Then you don't waste time, because the mind will always see. When you see something, you want to see more. It's as simple as that. But if you see feed coming onto your social media spaces that actually resonates with the things that you want to build, then you actually consume more of that, and more of that is produced or provided to you. So it's about intentionality, right? And being very deliberate about your growth.
So that was a very nice roundup. I know that we've come to the last segments of our program, and it has been fantastic having you.
Amazing.
If we could have stretched this a little bit longer with more drinks, of course. I mean, nice location, nice ambience. I like that word since I found it. Ambience.
Don't ask where I got it from.
No, I won't. I won't. You seem to fit the environment quite nicely. But we've picked up so much nuggets from you, and I think maybe in rounding we'll just go around. I'll start with myself and then George, and then we'll end up with Gilbert. So the thing is, perhaps looking at distillation of your journey, what has shaped you, the motivations you've had on a personal level that has also transmuted into what you're pursuing now. And I know that this is not the end of the road. Probably if we were to even have another schedule like 1 year from now, we'll meet a different version of you having tackled a new challenge or a new level or whatever the case may be. So perhaps my insights from this would be this. Looking at your various interventions across all the sectors, as well as being a participant in the very sector. So it's a different thing for you to be an enabler. It's also a different thing for you to be a participant, an entrepreneur in this case. And you've worn different entrepreneurial hats. Maybe give us, in 1 second or less, if that is possible, in 1 second or less, the high-level summary that you give to any entrepreneur who is starting their journey right now. That give like a 1 second summary, that one keyword, one thing you just say, that would be like a summary of everything they need to be or they need to have.
Pray for grace.
Wow. Okay.
Pray for grace.
Okay.
Everything else you can have. Grace is a gift. Pray for grace. When things are going great, pray for grace. When things are not going great, pray for grace. It keeps you humble. It keeps you learning. It keeps you real, and it reminds you that you're flawed. And there's no perfection. So it keeps you in check. You don't get full on your own supply. Like don't get, when things are great, it's very easy to get lost. When things are not great, it's also very easy to get lost. So you lose yourself both ways. Pray for grace so that you maintain the purpose.
Fantastic. Fantastic. George?
Love it. He took my question because I wanted to relate it to something that actually a man of God mentioned, saying that I think even as young people, I think I would usually get inspired by, and also entrepreneurship stories are very biased, as in towards success, right? Red carpet, I would say. And I think that's just one part of the story that's not told. That's told but untold, right? And it's a good thing that you actually mentioned that even as people come to you, that they want to be like you, like it's really hold up, like it's a very dangerous question to ask, because it's truly a reflection of if you want my glory, you have to also want my scars, right? So I think the biggest question is, do you want my scars too, right?
Because it's ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly. I think so but maybe my different perspective is, I love how you touched on and I think you do it very smartly in putting everything together. The ecosystem, we call it, it's not just entrepreneur, but it's how did the government play a role? How did the private sector play a role? How do the internationals play a role? And you've done that so well. And I think that for some people that are some entrepreneurs maybe that are very don't want to touch those buttons, or maybe don't want to go to those places, maybe you can touch on like how relevant is it to touch in those places. Like, I know that some parts of the government are really slow in making decisions and policies. You know, when you talk about the policy side, it's like you want to drive change, but the only way that this can be unblocked is because of the something being changed. But maybe you can talk about maybe your experiences on how that's very essential for the next journey, or maybe the next path of how it can unlock some opportunities, especially internationally, from entrepreneurs' perspective. Yeah, maybe you can just touch on that.
So
Yeah.
I always say, when someone says no this time,
Yeah.
it could be one of these. One, the pitch was just rubbish.
Rubbish. The pitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Two, it was a good pitch, but misalignment.
Uh,
Three, was a fantastic speech or pitch, but timing. Your audience has not caught up to
yeah.
what you're trying to bring to the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's the 5, fear.
Mm.
It's a great idea, we love it, but it will overpower, overtake, overshadow. We're not ready for this change. So change management has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And then 5, it's not the time yet. It's the season. So one of the things that I have learned, because I'm always ahead, like I'm 5, 10 years, most of the things I'm doing now, guys, trust me, I already wrote them down. I had an encounter like 5, 6 years ago. And now it's when I'm doing it and it's making sense. A concept was already developed, an idea, like it was born at that time, right? But it's also about you being patient and allowing the journey and not looking for the destination. So it's always about the journey, not the destination. And that's where success is defined. Your success mindset is not looking for, until I make $6 million, that's when I'll know I'm successful.
Yeah.
My success mindset is built around, I'm looking for $6 million. Last year I made 1. This year I'm making 2. I've succeeded.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually changing the narrative. I'm moving from one step to the next. I'm on a journey, not looking for a destination. So those two, once you reconcile that, it's a whole different ballgame, because then it actually makes you realize that you're on a journey, right? And what success is defined is not the outcome, it's the process, right? So when you take stock, count your blessings, name them one by one. When you take stock of your achievements, and that's why we set KPIs and milestones and everything, it's not about, oh, the company is trying to make turnover of $10 million, right?
Yeah.
It's about, okay, for us to get to $10 million, what are the key immediate milestones we need to set to get to 10 million? And at what point do we get to 10 million? 5 years from now or 3 years from now? It's what you're doing today that will actually determine whether you get to $10 million. You understand? So if today you can't achieve something and score and clap and say, guys, we did 1 quarter today, you will not clap for 10 million. Because you're not recognizing that we've actually closed 1 quarter. And then we jump from 1 quarter to 5. So gratitude is important. It's a blessing for growth and success. If you can't be grateful for the things that you're doing that you've set as deliverables or achievables, you will not be grateful even when you reach the 10 million. So if you can't be grateful, you can't be happy. If you can't be happy, you cannot call that success.
You can't be fulfilled. You
you
can't
can't
be
be fulfilled.
satisfied.
And on fulfillment, you see, a lot of us are looking for happiness. For me, I always say happiness is unattainable. No one will make you happy. You make yourself happy.
Pursuit.
That's why I say it's unattainable, because we're looking for happiness in others. We only find happiness in ourselves, because we need to agree that this makes me happy. You actually determine what makes you happy, not the other party. Right? And if you rely on others to make you happy, the danger is that when they don't, you will literally hate them.
When they don't, when they are not available.
When they're not available, when they
you've fallen
can't.
out with them, when they've refused
That's
to.
it. Fulfillment. And I always say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, do not look for happiness, do not look for motivation, look for fulfillment. And fulfillment is not happiness. Fulfillment is knowing that I've done something good and the people that I was doing it for are happy
Wow.
and my job is done.
Yeah.
That's fulfillment.
Yeah.
I've done something that I needed to do. I've closed this deal, and the people that needed to get these solar-powered, sprayers or have received them.
Yeah.
I'm fulfilled because it's been closed, and the people that I needed to do it for are doing something.
Yeah.
That's fulfillment. And that is, for me, the definition of success. Fulfillment, not happiness. Happiness is an emotion. It's a feeling. Feelings,
Come and go.
same as motivation.
When I hear Mara speak, the words that stick out, some of the words that stick out start with obedience. Obedience then breeds responsibility, right? And then responsibility breeds power. Power breeds glory, right? Some of the things that are important to get to glory from obedience include habits, being self-motivated. Self-motivation is overrated if you don't have some base, and that's why she said, pray for grace. Yeah, and grace is given to us every day. I think maybe those are some of the closing thoughts for this podcast, for this conversation. But Mara, in your words, right? The one thing that you would like, and to close this podcast off in your own words, what's the one last thing that you would like to say that you want the last person who's watching this podcast to learn?
Yeah.
Right.
I think the one thing that I would like the person on the other side of this podcast to learn is that you've been knocked down so many times. Get up.
Yeah.
Get up and just move. Keep going. You will be hated. Don't start because you want to be loved. That's a recipe for disaster. Start because you are going to be one of those people that will be written down in history that contributed to transformation. And you will be.
Yeah.
Somebody after your time is done will say, Chinedu, George did this. Let your work bury you, not your people that are clapping for you. And what I mean by that is that the lives that you touch on your journey will literally cry for you. They will bury you. They will show up at your funeral and say something about you and what you did. Today we still talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
Because of the sacrifice he made. If you believe in Jesus. 2,000 open now it's over 2,000, right? Exactly. So even up to today, people still pray to Jesus because of the symbolic, the symbol that he represents, and that was the salvation that he gave. Be the savior. I've given authority to man, right? They are made in my image. You are literally God's version of Jesus walking on earth. Do not be a waste to humanity.
Wow.
Be a savior on earth. Because you have been given the authority to save lives.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you are literally a waste to humanity.
Cheers, man.
Your name should be spoken about. Franklin, Abraham, everybody that has gone down in history, even the worst ones, whether you like it or not, Hitler played a very symbolic, like he played a role, and it's about purpose. Some people are placed on earth to play a role. It's not about you, it's about the role and the thing you need to do on earth. Lucifer was given that authority to come on earth and do something symbolic, so that there should be a lesson. If you don't know who you are and what you're here to do, you will miss it. Right?
Yeah.
So be the savior or the villain that you will put on earth to do and be.
So everyone has a purpose.
Everyone has a purpose. Even the worst person on earth has a purpose.
Has a purpose, yeah. Love it.
That's it. Because God loves them the same.
Yes.
Word. Well, I think we've come to the conclusive end of a very fantastic shoot. I mean, my ears have been blown off. There have been quite some challenging statements here, but they've all been made from a place of love and I think a place of value. Thank you very much, Mara, for making our time to join us for this podcast. We are looking for a repeat shoot, maybe a year from now, where we hear what the new stories on the block are. But it's been a pleasure to have you. You've been a fantastic guest and host. And we look forward and wishing you all the success, especially as your birthday is looming around the corner.
April.
And maybe before we just leave, a great shout out again to Ultra Lakers again for very fantastic location and all. Thank you very much for having Mara on the show, and thank you one and all, those behind the camera, those in front of it, those behind the lenses. It's been a fantastic show to one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you for having me.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Banana out.
This has been some uploading.